Okay, and I am back. This is the first little review I've done actually on the screens for a while. So I've been off in Singapore for a bit, then off for a nice little vacation in Japan, and then now here we are, sort of back to the real world and that. So I've actually been back for about 2 weeks or so. I've just been a little bit sort of slack, sort of getting back onto doing these sort of review videos. But oh, so much to talk about. Like it has been absolutely ripping the couple of weeks of that copper. If you're part of the copper gang, then definitely, man, you're on cloud nine with it all. Aussies, been up and down with it all and that. I actually sort of caught some what I'm calling sort of cycle lows in that. With that last sort of little kick off of the Iran situation and that sort of with the retaliation from Israel. So we dumped down there and actually got stopped on a couple of positions, but then I added in some nice sort of heavy weight and actually sort of came through and that was probably my one of my best sort of return trades that I'd probably almost ever done. So that was a great one there because I've been saying a lot to people recently in that, the part of the trade isn't just the analysis. The analysis is great. You can go through here, you can tell the story, you can go back and forth through all the charts, but it comes down to execution as well. You need to put your money where your mouth is and you need to really sort of put it there. And, when you get those two bits combined, the beautiful analysis and the sort of almost perfect execution, that's when you can obviously really see some decent sort of returns on that. Anyway, just do a little recap on that because obviously it's been away for a while, so I've got a lot to sort of go over in that. But pretty much just do a quick sort of recap just to get the ball rolling today, and we can go from there. So start off with DXY here. Going through the end of last week, we sort of saw that this sort of lower sort of falling support had definitely sort of been holding up a fair bit here and had been respected. As you can see, a number of times it was hanging this one down here. It was trying to push down. I did put up a matching, as you can see here, matching sort of top side of what would be a bit of sort of downward downtrending sort of channel. Almost you could, if you're looking longs, you could be looking like this is a big flag because of a pennant sort of breakout bit. So it certainly did react very strongly, as you can see down here. It almost sort of came down the bottom to break out, and I would have expected if this. We had a little bit of news out on Friday night. I think it was core PCE. It didn't. From what I recall, it wasn't anything spectacular. So the reaction here is a little bit sort of odd with it all, but it's obviously as it is what it is, and it's exploded right up the top side here. So with some news that isn't sort of super strong or super bullish for USD, as far as I can see, unless maybe I've sort of overlooked something in that. You kind of think that the market's expecting it to sort of drop down here, come down the thing, and they've obviously shot it back up and just blown a whole bunch of sort of early short positions out. So as you can see, we're consolidating. It pretty much respected this top side here. I mean, look at that. This is why you sort of do these analysis because it came up here, clipped it. Market's just going, yeah, that's enough for us, and now it's just consolidating on the top side here. Down below sort of 105.80, I think that's a sort of confirmation that we'll be sort of coming back down here. I think if we come down to this falling resistance one more time, we're going to see a bit of a drop down. Underneath that, we do have this sort of rising support. So obviously you probably get part of the market. This has come in with a little bit of a sort of confluence around this 105 area. It's a round number. We can see that it's been respected a few times previously. So that's where I'd be sort of looking for another reaction should we sort of come back down here. But I think sort of the fact that we're starting to see a little bit of a crack with some of the USD news. Like USD has been sort of firing this year mainly on strong data. Cuts are the conversation that happens over and over again, and then it gets pushed back and it gets pushed back. It's only pushed back on the idea that they've got strong data that they don't need to bring the cuts forward so quickly. As soon as you take away that sort of little reason for it, which is the strong data, GDP figures last week. Just bear with me one sec. Where are we here? Yeah, so GDP got smashed last week. Like they were expecting 2.5%, came down at 1.6%. So that in itself, like this is a perfect example because that very weak US data. So the idea with that is GDP is down. You need to stimulate production. You need to stimulate some sort of output. And how do you do that? Well, you give people cheap money, basically, low interest rates. So low interest rates spurs people on to borrow more money. They'll then sort of put that into, production, whatever, and, create jobs, create manufacturing, this kind of stuff, and, they'll pump up the GDP. But we saw as that data came out super weak, USD ran in the other direction. And a lot of, I was watching a few people sort of commentating on it as it was happening, and nobody could really put down as to what they thought it was. There was somebody saying there was like sort of core PCE, um, but like the quarter on quarter, uh, I don't believe that that's the case. I think it was more just a like a screw you to the kind of the people that sort of were trading the news as it dropped. And as you can see, this was this little spike here. So it went right up and then bang, smack back down into it. So I think they're still playing a few little games. I don't think we're going to come out to the top side here. Of course, you know what, if we go past 106.50, then you know that's pretty much swing highs, and you know on it goes with the what I like to call the USD fanboys. But I think that sort of weak GDP figure really hasn't been reacted to correctly yet, because that brings the conversation of, okay, we need cuts sooner rather than later, or at least we can't sort of hold the rates at this level for too much longer, and that because it's going to force a recession. So, you know, they're in a really bit of a tough situation. I guess this is what stagflation is, because, you know, on one side, they can't sort of hold the rates too much higher for too much longer because it's going to force a recession. But, you know, if they do drop the rates, then you've got the risk of inflation sort of flaring up again. So it's, you know, which one do you want to try and battle? Which one's worse for you in that? Is it the inflation or is it the recession fears? I think they're going to, you know, they've got the inflation down a substantial amount from the highs. So I think that they're sort of going to start to sort of come through with a sort of bit more of a tackle of the recession idea. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. But in the immediate, what I'm looking for underneath 105.80, then we'll be looking for a touch up of this falling resistance here. Sorry, falling support. Underneath that, I think we will find support. I don't think we're just going to capitulate and come all the way down here, but I do believe we are coming back down here. 104 would be a good area. You can see this has been respected a number of times. So if we bang a good level in here and say this is where our support would be, this is where we know buys have been. We can see it attempted to push down here a couple of times, and now, of course, that's where it exploded back off from there. Off the top of my head, I can't remember what this is. I would say probably their CPI. So that was up just a tick as well. So that's certainly interesting for USD, but I do believe we're going to be coming back down over here. I'm targeting 104. And so with that, I've sort of got some Aussie long positions still rolling. Gold, I'll get to in one sec, because that's a little bit of a sort of sticky situation now, because yeah, we'll get into gold in 2 seconds. So we've got Aussie flying up here, and so this is what I was talking about. I got in down here around the 63.74, I think it was. I had two positions, like 74 and maybe 76, 78 or something like this. For me, kind of chunky positions and that. I sold the first one on the day and that. We sort of came out over here, and then I sort of closed my other part, I think so, somewhere up around here, 65.20s or so. It was certainly some very, it was sort of like basically it's a squeeze going on, but at the same time you're starting to get some supporting data as well with the higher CPIs and these kind of things as well. So I think sort of particularly with a combination of conversations of the Fed bringing forward the cuts, conversations of potentially RBA looking at some more hikes, that's giving us a sort of a bigger sort of move to the top side here. That on top of the idea that, of course, a lot of people went long, so went short through here. But this is the thing, and I was talking to a mate that I sort of trade with here, and I was sort of saying that, you know, around this area here, like it was coming down, because the idea with this, in the sort of fundamental side of it all, is that, okay, Iran attacked Israel. You know, Israel, IDF, they said they're going to retaliate. That's fine. Everybody knew this. So what happens with these kind of escalations of war? Well, gold goes up and Aussie goes down. Aussie's a risk asset. We know this. And you can see sort of like, you know, they bombed them sort of somewhere, I don't know, over here. And then this was the week while we were sort of waiting for that retaliation from Israel, and then bang, came down here. So yes, technically they are correct and shit. They're sort of like, you know, they drop bombs, in a war, fear of World War III, yada yada, depending what news you're watching and listening to. And then it sort of obviously came down hard here. So the thing is with this though, there's a lot of the market that gets in on this part here. They wait till that happens. They wait. Oh my God! Look, the bombs have just been dropped. You know, Israel's attacking them back now. Let's go short, because that's a textbook sort of thing of what should happen to Aussie. Goes down here, and then comes back up because the people that have been positioning themselves probably all the way through here, but certainly through this week here, waiting for that retaliation, they're just going, okay, look at the market. They're sort of jumping on it today and they're sort of selling or closing their sort of short positions into this slot here. So while all these people wait for it to happen, these people are the people that earn the money or should be due the money, not the people that get in on the day, unless you're firing in and out, in and out, in and out. Hence why sort of I got long down here because the seemed sort of like, you can never tell with these things. So you need to back it. And this is what I was saying earlier that, we're seeing this sort of like retaliation, but it wasn't really like a full blown attack kind of thing. Like it was more, in my opinion, and it sort of seems to be obviously, with the benefit of more of a week or two hindsight as well, that it was a bit of a sort of like just a, trying to think of the right way to say it, but kind of like a token retaliation. I've been saying it's a little bit like the sort of game theory thing, and it's sort of like, particularly with Iran's response after they had been retaliated against, saying, look, you've seen our response. Reading between the lines, this kind of sort of means that, you've seen that we're prepared to attack you. You've seen that we're prepared to sort of to go against you. So we've shot at you, you've shot at us. No one really hit any massive targets. I don't think there was even any deaths. I mean, not that you want these things, but just to sort of spark up the sort of levels of severity with these sort of things. These were sort of these people know what they're doing. They know where they're shooting. They know where they're targeting. And so they've sort of shot these things. They haven't escalated the situation by bombing areas and killing people. But, they appease the people that are like, hey, look, we need to retaliate. We need to do something. And they're like, look, we retaliated. This kind of thing. So, and luckily, it hasn't really turned into anything further. I was watching Al Jazeera News and they were saying, like, that's where I got that sort of line from, that the Iran people said, look, you've seen our response. And that's sort of reading between the lines saying exactly that. I mean, you flick onto Channel 9 and they're like, oh, World War III is about to kick off, the world's on edge. So it's just absolute garbage reporting. But anyway, regardless of that, to the chart, Aussie very much unwinding a lot of this position here at the moment. If we take out these highs, then I would say we've got a good shot up to that 66 kind of area. We can see that there's a little bit of a sort of like, bottom side of this last little push up here. This was the CPI here. Actually, so what's that, 10th of April? So going back a couple of weeks now where we sort of dropped off that. But I think certainly if we can sort of push up through the top here, and as you can see, I've got this little alert set. I would say we've got a good run up to 66. As a nice sort of round number. We can see there was a little bit of support to try and hold this on the way up and possibly undo this move over here. As to sort of how far we go there, well, again, that sort of comes down to sort of like what the market want to do with USD as a whole. And as I keep sort of saying that, I was watching the news the other day and there was like some top economist or something from Australia. I don't know who he was, but apparently this guy sort of called the last 3 or 4 or 5 rate rises or something. He's predicting 3 more for the end of the, by the end of the year. So yeah, we're going to have to sort of see how that plays out. But if we've got Fed cutting and then RBA raising 3 more times between now and the end of the year, then I would say that's a catalyst for 69 cents plus for Aussie and really sort of testing those sort of basically yearly highs of almost pretty much where we opened, because it's been a shocking year for the Aussie. It was fired through the last quarter of 23, but ever since then, it's just basically been a sell. So yeah, we are seeing a little bit of a low here. We're seeing, and as I said, it was called these cycle lows. If you get above this sort of 66.50, 60 area, as you can see, there's a large sort of top of this range over here. If we can get out the top side here, then I think we're coming back up to sort of tackle those sort of yearly highs, or at least where we sort of started with at the moment. But first things first, get above 66.60. As you can see, this has been a known area for sellers. Even sort of coming into last week, we had a little bit of a sell down. It's opened up quite strongly here at the moment, so give it another sort of 10, 20 points in that, and I'd be sort of looking up around 66. Copper, quickly, it has just been an absolute rip-roar. Like, as I said, sort of like, if you go back and watch any of those last sort of analysis vids I did before we sort of went away, or before I went away, sorry, you would see that sort of, I think it was a 39 is where we were at, and we were looking for the break above that, and it is absolutely just taken off. You can see these early price targets, and it's just chewed through all these levels and lines. So copper, one think, like as I said, if you go back onto a couple of my vids, I mean, I've been doing the copper for months and that now, but around August here, we could see we rejected from this large sort of falling resistance here. Here we go in November, broke through. It retested here a couple of times and it just faked out, faked out, faked out. But once we sort of got through this area, this 3900, it has just taken off. I mean, if you look at this as a push from the lows there, you're looking at like 20% plus. Yeah, look at that, 25%. 10,000 points. Like that is absolutely massive. And if you look at sort of, we drag this one out here and look at how long it's taken us, 79 days. So 80 days. So what's that? Sort of just over 2.5 months or so. 2.5 months and it's gone 25%. Jeez, mate, you would not want to be short on that. And this is another thing that sort of makes me think that, there is still some life out there for the Aussie. While you've got copper sort of shooting up, equity markets at all-time highs, Aussie has just been lacking so much. I think the thing that's been holding it back is basically RBA incompetence. But I think sort of it's certainly got some area to sort of catch up to these other ones that we know it's got correlations with equity markets, copper, these kind of things. And particularly if we see a broader sell-off of US dollar, also gold as well, I should say, while we're talking about correlations with it all. Gold at all-time highs, like massive all-time highs, Aussie's just been sort of basically yearly lows. So I think there's definitely some room to grow. If you get that last piece of the puzzle, which is the RBA, then I think there's definitely room to run. Gold, I mean, gold just absolutely rips. Again, go back and watch my other videos and that, my analysis and that with these things. I've been long gold for a very long time, and I've been sort of very much sort of buying the dips on these things here. Where I was away, I was trading it. I was in Singapore, and that was the thing I was sort of like. It was actually, I mean, this is the whole thing, isn't it? The idea, trade and travel, this kind of thing. I mean, ideally, I'd love to have my home set up. That's definitely the way to go with things. But you know what I mean. When you are sort of able to sort of work, and particularly well, for me, trade while you're away, it's very much sort of like, yes, this is what it's about. So yeah, in a hotel room in Singapore, sort of trading gold. It was pretty good at that. All going around sort of Japan and that. I did move to reduce a lot of my positions because I've done that in the past, and I've sort of very much sort of you know kind of ruined a little bit of the holiday with the sort of stress of it all. So this time I sort of tried to keep it a bit lower, but certainly did okay with it all, but not the massive moves of it all. But if we start to build a bit of a sort of gold idea here, we can see that this has been a support around this sort of 2330 area. It took a couple of times to get through it last week. I've been trading little breaks here, and time and time again, failed. I think I got off close to last of my golds around 40, 41, 42 last week, so just around this area over here. Obviously, we're seeing it come back down here. It has done one little retest, but it is looking to sort of come back down here again. So with gold, and this is the same sort of thing, opposite of what I was saying with Aussie, that everybody was waiting for the retaliation of whatever it's called, a retaliation from Israel after Iran's sort of pot shots at them, and bang, popped up here. I started shorting this from 24.10. So you see up here it got to 24.18. So I caught those shorts pretty well. I did stuff the trade a little bit because I had sort of two positions up the top over here. Came back up here. I got stopped out for one at even. I think the other one was actually a little bit lower. So I was about maybe down around the 90s or something. But I was like, look, and again, I was sort of chatting with a mate and also my father that I trade alongside, saying that sort of like, for me, these are the cycle highs. This was the last little push up to the top where everybody was waiting for the retaliation, didn't turn into it, and bang, as you can see, this sell down afterwards. This was the massive move here. I took little bits and pieces in and out on the way down here, and then I started to sort of build the longs from around 2300. So along this area here. So I've been trading long through this area here. Interesting to sort of see where it goes from here. I mean, obviously, if you step back, it's still in a very big sort of bullish thing, and this is a pullback. But we are seeing a couple little things. Here's a high, and here's a low. So there's a lower low. We're obviously seeing that this push up here, if this can't sort of get up and push up the top side over here, then, we've got a significant lower low on this one here. And we could be looking at something similar to this. like a little flag breaking down to the bottom side here. If this is the case, let's drag this down over here. You might be able to see a little bit of a confluence coming down here. If this breaks through this area, I would like, obviously you'd need to get under the lows here, the 2290, certainly under 2290. I would say this is a flag breaking to the down, a bear flag like this, breaking to the downside, target 2220. So there we go, just under this little area here. That's where I'd be looking. So let's put a note on it. Okay, just right bottom. What? Bear flag confirmation underneath there, I think, is a fair call. We've still got a fair room to go, 20 to 30, so about $40 move. And this is another thing with gold, like these sort of moves flying through here. We were seeing 30, $40 move days. Like they were massive moves on that with gold. So yeah, so interesting to sort of see where we go here. I think this is a nice little plausible move to the downside here, targeting sort of 22. And the thing is with this gold, I mean, we saw all these sort of times that it loves to run with war. It loves to sort of pump up off these things. If you take that away, which is, you know what I mean, the idea that Iran and Israel are going to escalate things into a further wider spread war, then you know what I mean. That keeps it going if that is on the forefront for people. If you take that away, well, you know what I mean? There's a lot of profit on the table from all the people that were long all the way through here. People are going to start to bank a little bit. So for me, I think sort of getting down through this area, it's going to be tricky through this area. You can see that there was a little level of support through here. I mean, this could be a little area of support. We've seen buyers kind of held this and respected this. So you could be seeing something along these lines down here. And then that would come down here. So that's the course that I'd be looking at if we were to sort of break to the downside. If you look for a topside move, I would like to sort of see it above those Friday highs. So above the sort of, what's that, 2350. Above 2350, I would say the top side of this sort of falling resistance here. I reckon this would be an area interesting to sort of see. So a break up here, bang, and then up to something along this line here. As to sort of how high it goes there, well, we'll have to sort of wait and see. But again, I think the sort of the main catalyst for this has kind of subsided a little bit. So I'd be reluctant to be buying a great deal unless we see this close above 2350 here. And even then, 23, you know, depending where and how it comes to, like here, touch up of this line, a $30 move to the top side here. Then again, I'd be looking for shorts to sell it back down here. I think overall we're going to see some cooling in gold in the next couple of weeks. And finally, flip across to China because China sparked right back into it. So give me 1 second. Touch where we are. China. China sparked right back into it. And look, if you've been watching any of my stuff for the last, you know, month, 6 months or so, you can see that this is my play. The head and shoulders from the top when we were up over here, coming back down. We knew this is the weekly support. This is going to be heavy to get through. And look, for a while it was going to grind and come back down, but we are seeing a level that we saw with that potential left shoulder replay as the right shoulder over here. So again, if we see this break down and come down to the bottom side here, this is looking like a very big set of head and shoulders. As you can see, this is how long ago it was, because I was saying, look, if we come down here, this is the measured move, price target down the bottom over here. Now, this is obviously a larger time frame idea and move, but, you know, it does ring true. China, as we've sort of found, particularly through this sort of 3 month period up over here, and even through these areas here, it loves to grind. It really doesn't move a great deal. I mean, even in this area here, it's moved up. You know, you're looking at 0.5% move through here. It doesn't move a lot. But the ramifications of when it does move is what's important, particularly if you are trading, you know, your copper and your Aussie, which obviously I trade predominantly of. So yeah, we're still sort of in a bit of no man's land with this, because like if you drag this, if you look at this here, you've obviously got some sellers keeping it here, you've got some buyers keeping it here. So you know, it's just in a little sort of consolidation area at the moment. So really, you want to see a break either side of this to which way you sort of want to go with it all. Again, I'm obviously still looking to the downside here. I'm looking for a little bit of USD weakness across the board. China, I mean, you can't even judge half their data, or you can't trust it to be sort of legitimate anyway. But we'll have to sort of wait and see what happens with that. But certainly, if we get a breakout the bottom side here, look, there's a couple of areas of support where we know buyers have been previously, so that's where we'd be looking for. But for now, I don't think that's really too much. So let's just put this up here. Oh, no, the thing's lapsed. Okay, that's all right. We'll fix that up in 2 secs. Anyway, that's it from me. That's a quick little touch up again, and I'll be back on the charts again tomorrow and back at it. Let's go.